I don't know if I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can break up our fights and sit in the middle. Mine is exactly a year old.
Oh, yeah.
Are they different? I have a steering committee meeting with them on Friday. Nope, they're the same.
Should we go ahead? Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today on this snowy, cold, icy Wednesday. We appreciate it. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager for the Columbia Public Library, which is part of the Danube Regional Library System. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn with representatives from CoMo Preservation. Today's Lunch and Learn is co-hosted by the library and the League of Women Voters of Columbia-Boone County. We have people participating both on Zoom and in the room. So just a couple of Zoom housekeeping items for you. If you're on Zoom and you want to ask a question, we're using the chat feature for that. So if you would select when you in the drop-down menu there that you'd like to ask your question of everyone, that allows everybody in the audience to see what's been asked. And the moderators will pass those questions on to our presenters. And we will do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. For those in the room, I'll be walking around with a microphone so that the folks on Zoom can also hear your questions. We are recording this presentation, so it will be available in the next day or two on both the libraries and the League's YouTube channels. Now I'd like to welcome Barbara Hoppy from the League of Women Voters of Columbia County to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Lauren Williams, and always to the Columbia Library for co-sponsoring this. Thanks to everyone who came to share the day and who was online also. We're really pleased that CoMo Preservation has come today to share with us their work. They started in 2022. Today we have Dee Rossman, Elena Vega, and I think Matt Federley will be joining us shortly once he gets here. But we'll proceed and he'll join in. I just wanted to say before we start, when I was on the city council, historic preservation was a big issue and really near and dear to me. And, you know, we worked to preserve the Niedermeyer, very historic building in Columbia. We worked a lot with, I worked a lot with the Historic Preservation Commission to preserve the brick streets that were still here because they were interested in removing those and then repairing some of them. And then, of course, there's historic places like Stevens Lake Park that the community and I worked on. And so that's another aspect of historic preservation. And I just wanted to say that preserving historic buildings and places in the community really preserves the unique character and history and aspects of the community of that place. And like no other place in Missouri, in the United States, in the world. So it's really crucial work. And we're really pleased that CoMo Preservation started in 2020 and has really picked up this work. And so thank you so much. And we really look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really nice introduction.
She should join us. She should join us.
Yeah, you should join us. You know, that's one of our slides shows all our different partner entities in town, and it'll come up later. Am I appropriately close? Okay, thank you. Our slide shows that we are CoMo Preservation, and we met in May
of 2022, and we became an incorporated nonprofit. And
2023.
in 2023. And actually the process was incredibly fast. We got incorporated in April of 2023 and got the nonprofit status from the IRS in 30 days in May of 2023, which was really incredible. People told me, oh, this takes forever, it takes years. And actually it was incredibly streamlined and fast and easy. We just had to have all of our ducks in a row to start the process. So do you want to speed ahead to the next slide?
Did you want me to talk a little bit about this?
This one is one of the pages we were going to have Matt talk about, because Matt is our little local historian in our team. And let me back up. I'm Elena Vega, and I happen to be president of our board right now. And this is Dee Wassman, and she's treasurer of our board, CoMo Preservation. And sitting in the front over here is Melissa Bernhardt, and she is our party planner expert in on our board. And you don't know how important that is, trying to line up venues and things to meet. And we also are grateful to the city library here, the Columbia Public Library, for letting us do this, and our activities that we do at the library also. So this is a page that was out of the newspaper. In 2022, we started reading in the paper, like everyone else, about MU's plan, that they had all these buildings that had deferred maintenance and some needed to be coming down. And they had a plan worked out that buildings were going to be demolished, and people were shocked, people were horrified. And actually, of the 12 buildings listed, we know for certain 9 of them are gone. And probably a lot of you are way more familiar with some of these buildings than I am. Parker Hall was the first public hospital west of the Mississippi, and it is gone. It was historic. It was part of the red brick campus, and it's gone. Most of these other buildings are also gone. It includes the North Campus, the Ellis Fischel Cancer Hospital, that is also gone. And
Reed Hall was another one, with the first women's dormitory on campus, was another one that
which is incredible because it was a women's dormitory, and it would retain that history of when women were allowed to start attending the university. So it's kind of a big loss for us all to have that gone. And then
Oh, go ahead. So out of this tragedy or sad news, which is a common story of historical societies coming together, the famous one of Mount Vernon, of people trying to get together and save Mount Vernon, coming out of a tragedy and trying to do something about it. This gave us motivation to start meeting as a group in 2022. So
one of our members did a call out. Diana O'Brien, who some of you probably know, and Trevor Harris, who's a very active long-term Columbia resident, and he's on the radio, so some of you may know him. He and Diana put a call out and said, is there anyone else who thinks we should meet and talk about this? And is there a need for an organization other than the ones that already exist to maybe speak, advocate on behalf of buildings? So the next one is, and this was another story from the Crowder Hall, because those alumni were organized, they knew each other, they were powerful people, they had money, they knew who to contact, and they spoke up on behalf of the building, got the ear of administration, and that building still stands. And so we thought,
it's an example of the power of a common voice.
And what happens when a group of people speak on behalf of a building, it can make a difference. Now, we realize that not every building can be saved, or to save, in other words. So there are different strategies that have been used on campus for different buildings, how they've been rescued, how they've been handled. And so we are not here to bash MU. We love MU like everyone else. So going on.
In fact, our first speaker was the person in charge of the planning for that demolition?
He's a little terrified to come speak to us, but actually we just had respectful questions to ask him about how does this work? How do you come up with this plan? How do you make these decisions? And he gave us a lot of information. It was very helpful to understand how the process worked. And unfortunately, he gave us a very helpful look at the process. And okay, so then we get all these questions, and just recently someone saw on our website information about how to nominate their own home to be on the city's historic
Most notable
properties list. And it's just honorific. It gives the city cachet to a building, recognizing it as historic and memorable for our city. But this person assumed, because she talked to us, that she was talking to HPC, the Historic Preservation Commission. We had to explain, no, I hope you send it to the right people, because we are not HPC. We are a partner with them. We love to work with them. We co-sponsor events with them, but we are not them. They are a city ordinance created organization, part of the city of Columbia. It's a commission made up of city citizens with interest in historic preservation, but we are not them. We're just a partner. Then another partner is Boone County History and Culture Center, and people say, are you the Boone County History and Culture Center? And we're like, no, but we also exist. They have been here 100 years. We helped them celebrate their 100 years with the Popsicle Fest, and we had a booth that we shared with HPC. It was very fun. And then people ask us, well, isn't the State Historical Society of Missouri already in existence, doing everything you are wanting to do? No, they have a big picture view. They're trying to preserve the history of Missouri. We are trying to preserve the historic architecture, which includes all the spaces and places that we love. It includes landscaping, which was new and a new information for some of us in the group. We didn't realize architecture includes landscaping. So all that beautiful space on campus that we saw in one of the pictures, all of that, botanical garden area, Peace Park, all of that is architecture. Okay, anything else?
No, Matt has arrived.
Yeah, join us, hobble up here and join us. You missed out on the pages we were hoping to throw to you, but you're like, it's okay. We moved on. So join us. Would you rather be in the middle or in the side, or are you okay? Okay. So this is Matt Federley, and Matt Federley wears many hats. He's a drummer. He is a historian, and he also works for the Boone County History and Culture Center. So we have a tie-in directly with them, our inside man. And so we're happy to have him here today. And he does such a good job. He knows so much about Boone County and Columbia history. Okay. Anything else from this page? I don't think. Okay. And this I'm going to pass over to Dee. This is her.
Everyone can chime in on this one. I think Barbara helped out a little bit on this one. We did some research on just why we should exist. Is this important for us to proceed to actually come up with a new nonprofit? And these are some of the main themes that, and Barbara kind of mentioned some of that, enriches the community, like a sense of place, provide a sense of place, really celebrate the uniqueness of our architecture and our story. And yeah, that was, Barbara mentioned that a lot. And then another piece of the puzzle is the eco-friendliness of historic preservation. And this was an alarming statistic we found in our research, was that 1/3 of the landfill is with new construction debris from new construction. And things that could be done with a historic building, if it does come, unfortunately, to a demolition situation, you can actually, instead of a demolition, do deconstruction, where you're saving the pieces and repurposing them and things like that. So there's a big eco-friendly piece to historic preservation. And then the sustainability. sustainability and boost the economy was another one we found. Heritage tourism is the buzzword about having any type of historical preservation that people want to go to your city and experience. And as Deb Shields has said, nobody goes to a city to see a new Walmart and outside of town. And everything like that. So I really think that heritage tourism has been touched on Columbia, but as I visit other places and travel, I feel like we could have a lot more going on especially downtown area.
One more element that we think is really important is the creation of jobs. There's a lot of employment related to historic preservation activities. And so we've spoken with people like Tanner and John Ott and Vicki Ott, and just we're so amazed by their work. But there's a need for training for younger people to enter these kinds of employment opportunities where they learn how to do the brickwork, how to tuck point, how to do the masonry, all of those special things that you need to know for working on historic preservation. And so that's another element.
Yeah, so some more stats since I'm a former high school math teacher. To piggyback on what Elena said, for a new construction, 50% labor of the cost and 50% materials. For historic rehabilitation, it's 60% on labor and 40% on materials. So that is where the new jobs come in and is helpful. Also, back to the heritage tourism. Someone that travels, that enjoys history and are heritage travelers, they on average spend $500 more in a city than someone that's not a heritage or history lover traveler.
Number 3 on the enriches.
Any of the benefit. Yes.
One, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating something that was already said, but one huge thing for me is we have a rather unique challenge in Columbia, at least as far as Missouri is concerned, which is in my lifetime, and I'm not particularly old yet, we have doubled in population. Since about 1990, we've doubled in population. I've been to every county in Missouri, and we are extremely fortunate here. Let me tell you, if you go to the county seats of North Missouri that have been losing population for the better part of a century, if you go to the deep Ozarks, which never had much of an economy to begin with, these places in a kind way are in shambles often. Buildings literally falling down. If you follow statewide news, it's not uncommon to hear building collapse on County Square. At least one a year happens. That doesn't happen here in Columbia. We rather have the opposite problem. If we lose a building, it's because they're putting up a bigger one, sometimes a better one. You know, I'm not a total purist with historic preservation. Sometimes there's a better use of a space, and sometimes it's better to demolish an old one-story building and put up a 6 or 7 story building, which I know is a bit of a controversial take in this town. On the flip side, though, our challenge is to preserve what we have because we've grown. You know, something that's beyond the memory of anybody living is that we had vast Victorian neighborhoods in this town. What is now in use campus, what is on the backside of Stevens campus, even parts of what is Columbia College campuses have been cannibalized. If you've been to places like Louisiana, Missouri, or Hannibal, or even Boonville, you'll see these old Victorian neighborhoods that predate electricity, predate plumbing in the ground. You know, they have horse carriage out back. We had those neighborhoods. We were also a significant city, but our economic growth has cannibalized those places that no longer exist. So it's a really unique challenge here. But the biggest challenge is not material things. I can't emphasize that enough. The biggest challenge is that because most people in Columbia are not from here, born here, they moved here, whether for MU or for a job, there's a lack of knowledge. There's a lack of awareness about things. Things just get forgotten or lost unintentionally. No harm meant. It's just there's not a critical mass like there's in so many places in these old historic towns like Hannibal in Louisiana, where there isn't a core of old people that really remember things, and they're significant enough of the population that stuff generally gets protected. Here, our core of wisdom is small enough that we are always playing the keep up game. You know, even I don't think there's anybody on city council that's been here longer than I have, and I'm not old right now. So that tells you a lot about who our leaders are. good people often, but often they moved here for college. Our mayor moved here for college, I think in the 90s. So it's a good and bad thing. Constant new ideas come into town. It's a fresh town. It's an exciting town. It's a dynamic town. Flip side, our challenge is to educate, inform, and raise consciousness about these buildings for frankly the betterment of everybody. So that's my 2 cents.
So going down to this list, it provides us an opportunity to network with people with similar interests, which is really, really important. And it's just amazing how much we learn from each other. The Niedermeyer was rescued because Brent Gartner, a realtor, stepped in and found the right people to buy that building.
One of my former math professors.
The owner of the building is a former math professor at MU. Incredible. And he took on that project of saving that building. And it's really incredible. And so as I was doing some research today, looking at some documents, I was reminded that that building, it's really important. It retains memories for us because that building from 1837 to 18 something was where Stevens College met for a while. And so, not all of us know that because we grew up here. We have to learn it because someone shared that information with us. So it's really important to save those kinds of parts of our history. So
another reason I think too, that personally for me, and why I wanted to put time and energy into this was, I don't know if anyone remembers the Save Historic Broadway with that 100-year-old house near D&H. I live near that house. And we talked about the power of the common voice with Crowder Hall. A similar thing happened to save that 100-year-old building near D&H. And it was one of the most, I've lived here since 91. And it was one of my most proud and joyful moments of living here, of seeing the crowd at the Arc and speaking up for that, to save that building. So that's some of the reasons why we came about, why we feel it was important to start a new nonprofit in town.
And that last post down there, to help build a culture of historic preservation. One of our former mayors used that term a lot. And I really like that. It just to have that whole culture where that's something that we all prize and appreciate.
And I want that with visitors to our town to see that up front. If they go into a restaurant downtown and they're visiting, if there's something here, just something that stands out as this place loves their history and historic preservation.
So I think we hit the why we exist. And then I already mentioned that we met for the very first time, just an ad hoc group of us. And actually Dan Beats was there and his wife, Julie Plax, was there. And I was there. And Diana and Trevor Harris, who I mentioned, and Chris Campbell from the Boone County History and Culture Center, and Kelly Wingate Campbell, and several other wonderful people were there. And out of that, we decided, yes, there kind of is a need for another and a new group that has more of a focus on architecture. And then we started our speaker series in October 26th of 2022, and from MU, whose job it was to create that list and try to explain to us how that list was created and how they made their decisions. Very helpful to understand their process.
And unfortunately, adds a mathematics angle to this. It was a formula.
It was a formula, definitely. But guess what was not in part of the formula? Nowhere in the formula is representing the value of having a historic property or not having it there.
It's so difficult to quantify. How do you, if I had been at that meeting and I wasn't, I would have asked the guy, well, how did you calculate the value of the columns? What was how do you quantify the value of donation? How do you quantify the attachment to someone who got engaged and met their husband or their wife on the columns? How do you calculate the value of seeing the dome of Jesse Hall when you come around the curve on Stadium for the first time?
As I've been doing some research, because we want to do an Avenue of the Columns tour, and I've been doing research on the Avenue of the Columns. And when the academic hall burned down, there was a big fight of the board voted for the university to take down the entirety of Old Academic Hall, including the columns, for fear of liability. It's burned. We should take the whole thing down. And the city, there was outcry from the city saying, please, we want the columns to stand. And
two members of the board of curators got in a physical fist fight on the street. You may be familiar with Rockwell Gymnasium. Gideon Rockwell won the fight. He punched out another one of the board of curators, and the columns stand.
well, they did have an engineering team assess the columns and found that their foundation was still solid, and so they did not have to tear it down for liability purposes. So there was that also. We received our nonprofit status. We started our walking tours. Diana,
I believe it was Patrick Ernie first.
oh yes,
Brick Streets tour. It was the very first tour we offered in 2023. Yeah, and then in May of 2023, we had our first anniversary party at Blind Boon Home.
because that's where we met the very first time. And then we started a membership drive. Because we did our incorporation, we were like all a little nervous about members. Should we have members? Can we have members? And then we realized, oh, we're misunderstanding. And so we started a membership drive in November of 2023. And someone told us, you will never get more than 50 people. 40. And we were pushing towards 100 that first year, and we were amazed. And so we will be doing our second membership drive now in January 2025. We focused in December on CoMo Gives, and we're amazed by CoMo Gives and the generosity of the people of Columbia. So Dee?
And then, the last part was, and we hope to do this again in May. We pick May because that's when we first met, but it also is Historic Preservation Month, nationally celebrated. And Matt Featherly's last time, big hit, and we'll be debuting, or not debuting, that was the debut of the brick and mortar quiz. And we didn't use the word trivia because it's not trivial. It's But it was so fun. Matt put together rounds of questions and I learned a lot even just from that. And
that quiz was really hard.
But round 2 is next May. I think May 20th is what we'll have for our party this year for celebrating our 3rd anniversary. And then this is just our technical mission statement and goals that we have. Education is the biggest piece, as Matt was talking about, and everything. So, all right, ready? Or this is the education. Do you want to start this?
Sure, I'm started. So a lot of our resources, Dee has been this amazing website. So much of our success has been because Dee has poured probably weeks of her life into making this website. It's probably the most impressive product we have, and there's a lot of information on that, ranging from more general things about historic preservation in America and resources nationally, all the way down to the local level, and then very specific stuff. For a few months, I wrote a CoMo 365 blog, which was on our website, started on our website, and is still there. All the entries are there. I never did make it through the whole year because it was a sort of a manic rapture type thing, but it wasn't healthy. But it was at least 3 months of it up there.
So much information in those weeks that he did that. It was incredible, and we all were terrified for him as he worked so hard to do that. So
there's other stuff though too, and we're constantly adding to it. Is there like the contractors list up now? Recommended contractors list.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get to that down things, but there's a lot on that website that's educational, including links to all the other places you can find good information, like the Boone County Historical Society, the State Historical Society, SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, and so on and so forth.
In particular, that's the one that's the resources for researching historic property. I made that page, And I was happy to find that someone that nominated the house for the most notable actually used a few of the resources on that page. I'm like, oh my God, write this page. So, yeah.
We are also, like everybody nowadays, on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We doing our monthly guest speaker series, which you've already heard, which has had really a kaleidoscope of topics. We really try to keep it, because there are two other historical speaker series in town. One, the History on Elm at the State Historical Society, and the monthly speaker series at the Boone County Historical Society. So our lens is very much architecture, historic preservation, and so we've kind of been shocked at how many people have kept it up for 2 years, and there's more on our list for at least a couple more years. People like Tanner Ott, who have done so much, and John Ott, who have done so much for this town. Deb Shields has done one. Shippo itself came and did one. I did one on the architecture of the quad, and Morris Frederick Bell. So we had the owner of the Niedermeyer that was mentioned come speak. So people of all different walks of life. Some are who are professionals in the historic preservation world, and some are, kind of came into the accident by owning a building that they wanted to take care of. And some also, make their business, like Tanner, largely in restoring historical buildings and then renting them out. So a lot of great information in that. Those are all on our website. There's a great calendar on the website as well that keeps you up to date on all the events. The other side of our education is the tours we've done downtown. Looks like 2024 on the docket was a tour of Greenwood, which was very popular. If you don't know what Greenwood is, it's the oldest masonry structure in Boone County. And it's in private hands and very well taken care of. And it was a rare treat to see that. I'll tease just to this room, we haven't publicized it yet, but I'm hoping to work with the owners who are selling the Camplin House on West Broadway, which is a very cool old structure. And while it's sitting empty, it's a really rare chance for Columbia to get into it and see it. And the core of that structure is a log cabin, probably dating to the 1830s, maybe 1840s, that served as a tavern along the Boonslick Trail, which ran straight down Broadway. But the house is such a great example because it has accrued things over the years. That log cabin was expanded into a federal style building and then a brick building with like 18-inch thick walls. And in the 1890s, it became a sort of Italian Victorian thing. A very wealthy Conley moved in there. And then it was bought by a local architect, or I should say before that, in the early 20th century, it was a steak restaurant and then a nightclub. And then that's where it got the name Springdale Gardens, which is still in the memory. And then in the 50s, it was bought by local architect who sort of modified the Victorian porch and put that current neo-colonial thing on the front. So it's had a long history. The original farm was 400 acres. And it has a darker aspect too. Like 400-acre farm. Edward Camplin gave one of the 3 largest donations to found the University of Missouri. He was a very wealthy man. And like all wealthy men of that era back here, pretty much all of them, he owned slaves. And there were slave dwellings on that property. When those dwellings were tore down, the large brick chimneys were taken. And if you ever look at these tours, you'll see the retaining walls of the gardens in the back are made out of those chimneys. So this is the kind of like detailed knowledge of actual materials and how they've moved through time that if we don't talk about, it gets lost. And the value, someone might just totally well-intentioned re-landscape, not knowing that those are the chimneys of literal enslaved people and their houses, so something to think about. Yeah, that's right. It's right. Right on Broadway. It's on the south side of the road. It has a circle drive on the front. It's the only one.
That hill from Springdale.
Just before you get to Clink Scales and Unity, if you're headed west. Yeah. So yeah, more to an Avenue of the Columns tour, hopefully coming up, which will be a very popular one. I also want to do, and maybe it'll be part of that one, maybe it won't. I want to do a walking tour of the Quad and Francis Quadrangle, because that architect is one of my favorites. And sometimes I would join the back of the NU campus tours that the students were giving, and I would hear the most egregious things. So I think maybe one for Tiffany's, or any student that would like to join would be fun from a knowledgeable person. And we can look at some of the details of that was Missouri's great Victorian institutional architect.
Matt spoke in August and told us about the architect and about some of the things he designed. And if you missed it in August, on our website, Dean has created this incredible archives, and you can find what you missed, and you can sometimes get to the slides that the speaker provided, or notes right up from Nina, which are incredible. She gets so much detail. It's amazing.
So another activity actually we made a little of progress possibly on is the art and architecture. And we didn't realize that Jeff City already does a sketch day and has since 1948. But we just were talking to an artist on Monday via Zoom. And she's from Jeff City and loved the idea of working with the Art League. So this is kind of in our back pocket of thinking of getting all ages out and about and doing line drawings of buildings, and celebrating art and architecture. Because architecture is
Exciting.
And then the next piece, education is our big piece, but also there's a advocacy piece. And so the last few months, maybe a year, we've been working on trying to compile all the different tools and powers people have in order, if they want to preserve or recognize their last night. And we have been having all types of people give feedback, the State Historical Preservation Office, the city, the HPC, and Deb Shields met with many people. And because when you meet with people, they always are curious of what kind of tools that are available to preserve. And many of them also have a incorrect thinking that National Register has the power to save a building, and it does not. So that's when we started thinking we need to just go through, research this stuff. So some of the things of tools that are listed on here, that's on the most notable property designation, and that is a recognition only, it will not do a preservation piece of the puzzle. We also have locally the Boone County Historic Sites, which again is a recognition honor designation. And I'm going to leave the other one at the beginning. National Register, that one of the national recognition, but again, it's a recognition or honor. And
A special power that when you are on the National Register of Historic Places, then you are eligible for grants and for tax credits, which none of those other things tax credits. So
federal and state tax credits, and Missouri, excluding Kansas City and St. Louis, now is up to, if you total federal and state, 55% of worth of tax credits, except of your expenses. Except Kansas City and St. Louis. Mm-hmm. That was just passed in August in terms of raising it for Missouri.
Became effective in August, yeah.
And then the next easiest one to explain is there are 3 different overlays you can do on a property, and they can be lowered, all kinds of different type of zoning or code, but there is variation overlay, and that one is in detail called a local landmark. If it's one single building, if it's multiple buildings, it's a local historic district or local district. And so that is the one that actually has some teeth to it. We only have 5 landmarks in the city. And that is, let me think about it, the Taylor House at the Bed and Breakfast on Broadway is one of them. Mm-hmm. The Tar Mansion out on Oakland Gravel, the Miller Building where my secret garden is, Crane Show Building on 910 Walnut, Right now, the city owns that building and Mule Barn across from that. Those are the only 5 landmark, and they're also a district. So anyway, so we've just been trying to, and then the last but not least is probably, I mentioned teeth on the other one. This may have some fangs. This one, the preservation easement. And we're just digging into this, but this is a legal agreement or a government entity that you can enter in, and with this legal agreement, it would have it detailed on the extent of what you want preservation wise.
You might be familiar, we have a lot of conservation easements in Columbia. The Greenbelt Land Trust, things like that, that put limitations on development, like you can't develop this land, the stream buffer. And they stay with the title of the property. So if anybody sells that land, it stays with that land. It's legally binding throughout time, no matter who owns the land. So this is just a similar thing for historic preservation. We do have a couple of these in Columbia. They're little known. One is the Maplewood House down in Nifong Park. One is the Missouri Theater on 9th Street. And then what was the third one? Do you remember?
I believe that it may have expired Greenwood.
Oh, I think Greenwood. Yeah, I think
the reason they have the preservation easement on them is because they had applied for a grant with the State Historic Preservation Office. And if you get grant money, they want to make sure that you're not going to make any changes or tear something down. So they do enter in automatically into an easement with SHPO.
it's great because if they give you $100,000, they don't want to see the building demolished 10 years later. You know,
a lot of times that has a deadline, but some of these can be entered in perpetuity, possibly. Yeah, so some of our future goals with advocacy are to just inform and empower people if this is something they want to do as a neighborhood or with their building, that this is something that they could just educate them on. And if we're probably in 2025 up for visiting with neighborhood associations if you want to hear more about all the different options for preservation and recognition. And the next thing I'm working on is trying to get some local or advocate for some local funding and financing. There are funding and financing available. I feel like one of the pieces we could pump up locally is to help out homeowners doing maintenance or historic preservation type of incentives, tax grants, etc. So that's tonight's talk. All right, you want to do the restoration?
Okay, can you flip it? Okay, so again, we have a page dedicated to restoration topics on our website. And one of the things we worked hard to do is to find experts who are familiar with doing masonry or other projects in a historic building. Some people are lucky. They grew up in a family, they gain all those skills, they know how to do all that work in their own home. Some of us are not lucky like that, and we didn't learn all those skills. And so having a list of local people, I have an older house, and when I tried to get the shutters stripped, I tried stripping one myself. And when you have like 10 to 20 layers of paint on shutters with all that detail, it's impossible. And there used to be someone near Columbia who did that work, and they retired the day that I finally found out who they were. And I called them, and that day they said, I just retired and closed my business today. And then, you know, people kept giving me hints and names of different people to strip shutters, and finally got a name of someone and said, your actual address, but said, bring the shutters and then I'll give you a quote. And so I did not just start driving. That one was off my list. That was too suspect. Finally, I got someone in St. Louis. He has all my shutters, and then COVID hit. And so I still don't have my shutters back on my house. And someday I'll have my shutters he's back up and running. I'm mounting all my shutters after stripping them, repairing them because they have movable louvers, and they are cut to fit exactly my windows. They were supposed to be put on, screwed on so that you can close them for a storm, like for the winter storm we just had. I could have run outside and shut my shutters and protected my windows. Instead, now they were screwed on just up against the wall, like, just decorative shutters. But I finally have them almost ready to be picked up. But that is to explain why we decided we need to create it. And we've been adding, if you have ideas of people with those skills who should be on that list, let us know. We've also put a link to a list because we discovered after we started creating our own list that Missouri Preservation, a sister group to our group, they're statewide, a nonprofit that is like ours. They have a statewide list. So we have a link to that. Also a directory. Missouri Main Street's another program. Exactly. Missouri Main Street works a little bit with smaller population towns to revive the main streets. And it's a national program, but Missouri Main Street has a nice directory. And when I was mentioning all those preservation tools to help maneuver any of those, you need probably a wide variety of people to help. And that's why the Missouri Preservation and the Missouri Main Street have directories. You can search for all that type of masonry, attorneys, CPAs that deal with this window restorers, architects. Yeah. And then talk about and then another thing we want to do is we want to partner with other groups to start having classes for homeowners who want to learn skills. We've run across one amazing man up in Hannibal who teaches incredible classes, the Belvedere School of Hands-On Preservation. And it's incredible. He actually, back in the day, maybe back when you were on HPC, the HPC actually paid for Bob Yap to do a class, which is found on the city website. And we have a link to his class. But we would love to have a series of classes for homeowners and renters to learn skills on preserving a historic home. So that's our future goal. We haven't started doing that. And then we mentioned before demolishing a building that we hope building owners would save and rescue the pieces that could maybe be reused in another project. And so we want to work with the city on starting to collect things of value, of historic value.
You want to talk about the Jeff City?
And Jeff City has a very active store where they sell things. They didn't really start that. They've been active as a group, a sister group to ours since 1983. But after the tornado in 2019, they started rescuing salvage and selling it. And they have a building, and then they have sales twice a month. Future goal, a dream for the future someday that we could do that in Columbia.
Right.
And then upcoming events tonight, Dee is going to lead a workshop we're going to have where we talk about the city's current project, the HPC's current project of creating our first Columbia Historic Preservation Plan. We have never had one before in the city of Columbia. Despite having such beautiful historic buildings, it's really important that we create one and kind of plan ahead instead of always ad hoc trying to respond to a situation. It'd be nice to have a plan. And so we have a copy of the draft. If you want to look at the draft, we can share it with you. HPC shared it with us. And so if you want to get it from them, that would be also possible. But we have it. You have it up on the website. So on our website, it's available. You can just download it. It's like 54 pages. So we did not make, you want to make a copy and look at it, that it would be great. And it's on our website.
And if you can't make it tonight, there's always the Be Heard page that they have for comments. And Missouri also at our website for the event, not only the draft, but also you can look at Missouri Preservation holds some other cities' plans in the state. St. Joe, I know there's a Jeff City preservation. It's like a dream. It's a dream document.
Because the draft document right now is kind of a skeleton. It doesn't even have an index yet at this point. And so it'd be nice to come up with, what is it we as a city, what as residents of this city, what do we want in that plan? And Rusty, who is the liaison for HPC with the city, he actually encouraged us to hold that meeting. He said it gives citizens an opportunity to share their thoughts in what maybe less of an intimidating format than going to a city meeting or to trying to type something and be heard if they're not really internet savvy. And he said he encouraged us to hold this meeting because we were a little nervous about it. Are we stepping on their toes? But they really encouraged us to go forward and do it. So tonight at 6 o'clock, this very same room, we're having a very informal meeting where we look at the draft and then try to gather some thoughts if people have ideas that they want to share. But we also encourage people to go to be heard, share your specific suggestions of what you think should be in there. And right now, it seriously is just a skeleton.
It's a true draft right now. It'll be a significantly different document by the end.
And HPC plans to hold a public input meeting in February, but no date set yet. Oh, whoops, and normally we'd have a meeting to just say, hey, come to our meeting at the library in January, but we have a special event in January and limited tickets that are already sold out. But if you'd like to get on the waiting list in case anyone cancels for January 28th, just add your information. We're having Steve.
We're just so excited about that activity. And if you've never been to Annual Taverna, you've got to go. It's fabulous. It's amazing.
1901 City Hall. Yeah. Okay. And let's see.
We're co-hosting with the city's HPC a workshop about tax credits and historic preservation grants that are through SHPO. So we will have people from SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, and we will have HPC co-hosting it, and it'll be here in SHPO. Yeah.
And then these are the rest.
We have a great year set up. Peter Block's going to talk about his 1931 home. And we're going to have Rachel, who is from this, she's an employee of the city of Jefferson City, is going to talk about their new legacy historic district, recognizing the Foot, which is sort of at the foot hill of the Lincoln University, an area that was totally demolished and removed in the 1960s, 1950s. But there's so much history preserved by oral histories that they did interviews. And so there's a video they created, and she's going to talk to us about the process and show us the video. And then April Lilivianello is going to talk to preserve the Missouri Theater. And I'm so excited about that one. And May 20th, we're going to celebrate our 3rd year. So mark it on your calendar, save the date. Come join us.
All right. And then
Dan's got a question out there.
Let's use the mic.
Actually, a little announcement, self-promotion actually, but next Tuesday, I'll be speaking at noon at the State Historical Society on Elm about Walt Disney's Missouri history. And part of that is the 30-year effort to preserve and restore the building where his first studio operated in Kansas City. And there is a Columbia connection. The architect who designed that building in Kansas City and several hundreds of others in Kansas City. Nell Peters is now celebrated and famous as an independent female architect. And she, I believe I'm correct in saying, designed both the Belvedere and the Dumas apartment building here in Columbia. So maybe and the State Historical Society always provides nice cookies and snacks there. So noon next Tuesday the 14th.
Super.
and it's on the calendar already. On the CoMo preservation calendar.
And so these are ways you can support us. You can become a member. You can just donate. You can follow us on social media. We love to be followed. Move up our numbers, and sending out an email. Now we send out a newsletter. And you can attend one of our upcoming tours. We're so excited about our new tours for this year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Do you have any questions online? Well, I'll ask one question, and you started to talk a little bit about it, but can you tell me a little bit more about your interaction with the Columbia Preservation Commission? The city,
Conservation
yeah,
Commission.
yeah.
We are partnering with them in various ways, like our upcoming, the workshop that is on February 8th. It's a Saturday from 1 to 4. It's about tax credits and historic preservation grants. And so we're partnering with them on that. We shared a booth at the Popsicle Fest for the Boone County History and Culture Center's 100th birthday. And we're also trying to partner with them to take over a task that they've been informed they can't perform, which is the saving of salvage historic items from historic buildings that are to be demolished. So recently, 3 of us from our group went along with Stephen Bybee, who's chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission, and we took photos of a building that is to be demolished for expansion of a park, and the building is in terrible, terrible shape. It's really quite disgusting. And so that one, we understand why it's going down, and they understand it's going to happen. But we wanted to go in and see, is there anything of value? The most valuable thing that we actually found is on the ground, a brick, an old brick. So we now have a tub of salvage, and a brick is in our tub. 2 mailboxes, a brick, and some light fixtures.
Hopes is 1,000 square foot free facility.
Oh, that would be cool. That's the hope. From a tub to that. Yeah.
I have a question. It's for me, not the chat. I live in an old neighborhood nearby, and we are now experiencing people purchasing the house and the lot and taking it down and putting in something terribly different than what was there. Is there no recourse that anyone has?
Okay, that is exactly why the advocacy group has been looking at these various different things. And we go back to the whole idea of the overlays that the ordinance that addresses Historic Preservation Commission. It talks about the overlays, and there's a historic district for a whole series of homes or buildings all in a neighborhood together. And it talks about landmarks for a single individual building. And so really agree that you would like an overlay of a historic district for that area. You need 60% of ownership agreement. And go to the HPC, they have a form to fill out. It hasn't been very findable. They've acknowledged on the web, but they would be very happy to help you find it and help you access it so that you could print it out and start filling it out.
And the owners get to decide what is delineated in the overlay.
In a historic district, you can only preserve exterior elements of a building. In a landmark, you can also preserve interior elements of a building, but for a historic district where it contains a series of buildings, like within a neighborhood or within a commercial district, it only addresses the exterior. So it's really, that's why we were suggesting if your neighborhood is interested in having someone come talk about these various tools, please talk to us, give us a call, send us an email. You know where we are, and we can send one of our people. And Dee's husband Dennis is on the advocacy team. Diana is also on the advocacy team, and they have been wanting to go speak to neighborhood associations, but we've been saying, wait till we understand what these different resources do, because we don't really know.
I want to give you some more hope too. There's 2 other tools in the toolbox that may be coming down the line at some point. One is the easement, the conservation easement, that's a long-term tool. That's not going to really directly address the private owners who own the houses that want to tear them down. But it's a long-term tool that maybe people who own significant homes who want to prevent that from ever happening in the future decades could put in place, who are closely watching what's currently happening. And the other thing, which may come down the line at some point, is it is entirely possible that HPC can actually have some review through and some teeth, the Historic Preservation Commission. And that may be something we need to advocate for as citizens, but the Jefferson City government has their Historic Preservation Commission. I don't know if that's the right name for the committee. Does have some teeth, and there are other cities in Missouri that do have some teeth. That's never been achieved here in Columbia, although it has been talked about in prior decades. So maybe something to watch for.
I found some ideas from looking at the Jefferson City Historic Preservation Plan that some of the neighborhoods had used. So that might be a resource also to look at. Again, that's under it's on the January 8th event for tonight, a link to all the cities plans that Missouri Preservation has. And that's how I found the Jeff City one. So you might be interested in looking at Jefferson City's Historic Preservation Plan. They probably have it on their city side as well. Yeah, so it's interesting to see what some other cities power they have that maybe we don't have. Yeah. And that's the piece, some of the pieces we need to get public input on and have some voices on those type of topics tonight and on Be Heard and to your city council members once it's up for city council, which will probably be later this year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's something we could mention now too, is that there was a big city council race and mayoral race happening here in spring. And to my mind, one of the best ways is at these public forums and to these candidates, just bring up these topics. So for all I know, some of them aren't even aware of them. And if we make it an issue in the election, then they'll remember it when they're in office.
Really good point. Well, thank you so much for this, for all your work, for coming here and educating us. And I did want to say that membership is only $20 a year. So please join. And I think it's amazing. And there's a saying, it's amazing what a few individuals, something like that, can do. And so I think you're the example of that. So thank you so much for being here. Let's give them a round of applause. And I also want to mention that our next Lunch and Learn is February 12th, and we've invited Powerhouse Community Development Corporation to come. They took up the meeting, the Everybody Eats Thanksgiving meals that Amita Creighton started like 25 years ago, but they also work in many communities, including Columbia, to help individuals with their economic life and their personal growth and development. So it's a somewhat new organization, so we're looking forward to hearing from them. We don't have a confirmed speaker, but we'll put that on the web once we get that. So thank you so much for coming, and this will be recorded and available on the library site as well as the League of Women Voters site, LWV-CBC.org. Thank you.
That's right. Well done.
That's about 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think? It's about 45. I was kind of on hold.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'll enjoy it.